think we talk enough about the mental piece to pregnancy. We talk about the physical and what we're supposed to, oh, you're gonna gain weight and all of these things. This is what to expect during birth physically. This is what to expect we don't talk about like the mental and emotional impact, I think, especially when you look at all the factors that come into play or can come into play. And my story, I think, is one that hasn't necessarily been told in that way. The disconnection piece that can happen. I curate workshops and programs for families and educators that promote a respect and appreciation for nature, particularly from the perspective of Black, Indigenous, and other people of the global majority. So uplifting our stories of nature to reconnect us to nature. I found out I was pregnant in August of 2013 and was living in Omaha, Nebraska at that point. Had been married for 5 years and was new to Omaha. So I just moved from Nashville, Tennessee the year before to Omaha, and was at that time I was a professor in higher education and early childhood. So the background as a teacher, and so I was feeling pretty, I guess, confident. And so it was actually, I didn't realize it until I think I was almost 3 months pregnant. I think for me, I thought that, you know, pregnancy, I was gonna all of a sudden feel like this joy and have this like emotionally connection to my child and wanting to be a mother. But I have to say, I was pretty indifferent even before I was pregnant about parenthood. And I was like, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And I have to say this, Omaha and being in Nebraska was a good place because they valued babies in many ways. So like my colleagues were so excited and everybody was so excited for us. But I think what was hard at that time was a couple of things, right? So I didn't realize the impact of being so far away from family. And I've always been away, you know, ever since I left after college. Like it never occurred to me that I would ever move back to Greensboro, North Carolina, that would need to be important. But it was like all of a sudden I was like, I'm really far away from home, not within driving distance. I was always within driving distance. That was a big thing. And then at the time, my partner at the time, before my husband, was having some struggles with adjusting to being in Omaha. And I think, like, I just couldn't even focus on me. It was like, I need to make sure he's okay. And so I think that played a huge role in being able to also, like, enjoy pregnancy. I remember going to a counselor. I always tell people laugh at me when I say this, but I tell people I feel like I had prepartum depression. Because it wasn't what I was expecting. Like, I remember going to a counselor a few times and it's like, I've got all this on my plate and, you know, my partner's not doing well and I just feel so disconnected from this child. And yeah, so that was pretty hard. Being pregnant, I wasn't sick, I didn't have any complications. So all those things went well. Kendrick's birthday, that's his father, was a couple days before he was born. And so I remember, like, on the day before that, I was having, you know, being more uncomfortable. And I was like, are these labor pains? Like, what is this, right? So he stayed home from work that day just to, you know, make sure. And I said, you know, the next day I was feeling better and it was his birthday. So I was like, well, we'll just go to dinner and I'm feeling fine. I was still teaching and working. The morning of, on the 13th, I remember waking up a little earlier. So I went to the bathroom and, you know, I was like, what is this little blood here? Like, I didn't read books. Like, I did a class and all of that, but I didn't remember talking about the mucus plug, right? I don't even remember that part. So I looked it up real quick. I was like, oh, that says mucus plug. When it comes out, you're probably pretty close to, you know. having the baby. But I was like, well, I still feel fine, and I had some things scheduled that day. I was supposed to be working with a friend on a conference proposal. So I was like, well, you know, I'm not going to sit around and just wait. So I was like, I'm going to go on about my day. I met her at a coffee shop and we got it done. And then she was like, okay, I'm going to finish these edits. We'll go back to the office. We'll drive back to the office. And yeah, so we drive back to the office. I went up to my office to get something. And then I was like, something felt different. I think this is, you know, it's time, right? So by this time it's the afternoon, probably around 2 or 3 o'clock. And so I walked down to the next floor to give her, you know, my final edits. And I said, oh, and I think I'm in labor. And she was like, oh, do you want me to drive you to the hospital? I was like, no, I think I'm fine. I'm not feeling anything rapidly happening. I said, I'm just going to drive. I'm going to start by Target and I'm going to go home, right? Because that nesting is real. And so I was laughing because I left and I went by Target and I was like, I'm just going to I had this need to like wash my hair. And so I was like, oh, I need some more shampoo. And it was like I didn't have like the last thing I wore breast pads or something. And so I was like, I'm just gonna get these 2 things and then I'm gonna go. I was in there, didn't get a basket or anything. I'm like holding all this stuff and I finally get to the register and it's like, now I'm feeling them, right? And so I'm like, okay, let me get on home and get my stuff. And we lived across the street from the hospital.
Oh.
So that's the other thing.
Super convenient.
Right. That's the other reason why I wasn't too like panicky. And so I called Kendrick on the way home and was like, hey, you know, I'm feeling the labor pains. And this was what was funny. He had planned to go to some happy hour for an event thing. And he was like, do you think it's happening now? I think I'm going to go to happy hour or whatever. I was like, no, like you got to come now. This is happening. So yeah, so I was at home and this is probably, you know, 4 or 5 o'clock by now. And by this time, like I'm pacing and we had the dog. And so he's pacing with me, right? I'm like, okay. And then I was like trying to time him. That was frustrating to me. Like I didn't understand how to time contractions. They were just all over the place. And then they were getting stronger and so when Kendrick got home, I said, I don't know. I can't figure out these contractions. So I called the doctor. I was like, I don't know. And they were like, well, you can just go on over to the hospital and they'll, you know, check and let us know, right? So we did. So by that time we got over there, it was probably like 6 o'clock. And the doctor comes in, not my doctor yet, but the doctor on the staff attendant. And she's like, has your water broke yet? I was like, no, I don't think so. And so she checks me and she was like, oh, you're 6 centimeters already. She's like, and you need to decide now if you want an epidural. And I was like, I already made up my decision, right? Like, this is happening, we're getting this epidural. So by the time she had walked out and came back maybe 10 minutes later, my water had broke. I didn't even realize it because I was already laying in the bed. I didn't feel anything, but when she was checking me, she was like, oh, you're wet. So it had already broke. And then the anesthesiologist came and it was pretty quickly, within 30 minutes. And they did the epidural and like I didn't have any fear about that. I was more fearful of the pain. I don't like pain, so I was like, cool, let's do this, right? So that was smooth sailing. And so, but the epidural did slow down for sure the labor, because I think if I hadn't gotten one, he probably would have came within the hour or so. So it slowed things down, and at 10, I hadn't dilated anymore.
Oh no. Yeah,
and so, but his heart rate started to, when I would lean on my side, or they put me on my side, which is where they wanted me to be, I think that was right, or it wasn't on my back, I don't know. Then his heart rate would go up. And so they were kind of monitoring that. Because I remember at one point, it really went up, and a couple of them came in very quickly, checking. And so, so they had me in a position, they were like, you know what, he seems to be happier when you're on your back, why don't you just lay there? And then it seemed like at 10:30, just within 30 minutes, she came back and checked. She was like, well, okay, you're ready. It's time to go. So they were calling, I remember them being on the phone calling my doctor, like, how far away are you? And because they kept saying, oh, she's on her way. But they were like, okay, how far away are you? Because this is happening. And so when she got there, it was probably like 11 o'clock. And 11:05 or so, and I started pushing, and then I remember her saying, she was like, okay, she was talking very calm. She said, we may need to use forceps to get him out. His heart rate's jumping. We're gonna call NICU to come in just in case. But she said, I just need you to be calm. And so, I don't know, I was very calm, I think, because she was very calm. But like all of a sudden, like this team of people come in with, you know, what do you call the little incubator or whatever, and so I still was calm. I think just because it was like, this is a precaution. We think you'll be fine. But yeah, after I feel like he was here at 11:24, so it was just so quick. I think I didn't have time to worry. And he came out just fine. Like everything was fine, and yeah.
But he was fine. But what about you? Your experience? Because I know you mentioned during the pregnancy was really major support for your husband, trying to make sure he was fine, and that was taken away from your experience to really connect with Jeremiah.
Yeah.
And now, you know, everything went so fast when you went to labor. It's just like everything just went by so fast.
Yeah, I don't know. I think again I was just on autopilot, right? Like intellectually, I knew what to do. I knew what to expect. I knew that, you know, I needed to breastfeed. I needed to do also. I was just kind of on autopilot. I think I was so disconnected emotionally. I remember even my sister being concerned about that beforehand. She's like, you don't wanna do the, you know, the registry. You know, you're not excited about the baby shower, because she was just so excited when she had her kids, right? Felt like I was just juggling all the things, right? And I didn't have time to process that this was supposed to be a transformational, you know, time in life. Right? And something to enjoy. It was something to do. And I don't think we talk enough about the mental piece to pregnancy. We talk about the physical and what we're supposed to, oh, you're going to gain weight and all of these things. This is what to expect during birth physically. This is what to expect. We don't talk about like the mental and emotional impact, I think. Especially when you look at all the factors that come into play or can come into play. And my story, I think, is one that hasn't necessarily been told in that way, the disconnection piece that can happen. But I know there are other women who've experienced, you know, that same thing of, you know, having to juggle all these things. You're moving, something doesn't turn out the way you thought it was, and you know, and so you just don't have time to focus on, you know, this new life that's happening. So yeah.